Hi, and welcome to English-Fabule. Are you learning English? Great! Let's learn English with a very interesting story. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. Let's get started.
Introduction. This video tells the story of a very dark and important figure in history. We are going to learn about the life of a man who, in many ways, shaped the 20th century, not for good, but for terrible evil. It's a difficult story, but it's also important to understand. We need to learn about history so that we don't repeat the mistakes of the past. Sometimes, understanding the bad things that have happened helps us to make the future better. That's why we are here, to understand one man's terrible journey, not to praise it, but to learn from it. Let's begin. Chapter 1. Early Life. Adolf Hitler was born in a small town in Austria called Braunau am Inn. It was the year 1889. His father, Alois Hitler, was a customs officer. Alois was a strict man, and it is said that he was not easy to live with. His mother, Clara Pelzel, was a kind woman. Adolf was one of several children, but many of his siblings died young. This was very sad for the family. Growing up, Adolf was a strong and sometimes difficult child. He did not always do well in school. He liked some subjects, especially history and art, but he did not like others like mathematics. He did not enjoy following the rules. He liked to lead other children, and he often got into fights. His school teachers often described him as being disagreeable and difficult. Adolf's family moved several times when he was young, going to different Austrian cities. His father wanted him to also become a customs officer, but Adolf did not want this. He dreamed of being an artist. He loved to draw and paint, and he believed that he had talent. He liked to spend his free time making art. He thought that if he could go to art school, he would be successful and famous. He had a complicated relationship with his father, and this caused him much stress. Adolf and his father argued often about his plans for the future. His father wanted him to have a normal job, but Adolf wanted to do something creative. When his father died in 1903, it was a big change in his life. This was also a very difficult time for his family. After the death of his father, Adolf had to make some decisions about his future, and he moved with his mother to the city of Linz in Austria. He continued to go to school, but his heart was not in it. He spent a lot of time thinking about art and drawing pictures. His mother supported his dream, and she gave him money to buy things needed for his artwork. This showed how much she cared about him and his wishes. But in 1907, another difficult event happened, which would affect his life greatly. Adolf's mother became very sick with cancer. He stayed with her and cared for her until she died in December. This was very hard for Adolf. Losing his mother was not easy for him, and he was alone. After his mother's death, Adolf made an important decision. He decided to move to the big city of Vienna. He wanted to go to the Academy of Fine Arts, a very famous art school. He believed that he was talented, and he dreamed of studying art there. This move was a big change for him. He was now alone in a new city without his family, and he did not have much money. He hoped that Vienna would be the place where he could start his career as an artist. This period of his life was full of both sadness and hope. He did not know then how much his life was about to change and where he would end up. Chapter 2. Life in Vienna. After his parents died, a young Adolf Hitler moved to Vienna, the capital of Austria. This was a big change for him. He had dreams of becoming a famous artist, and he thought Vienna was the place to make that happen. But life in Vienna was not easy for him. Hitler tried to get into the Academy of Fine Arts, a famous art school. He wanted to study painting. He took the entrance exam twice, but he failed both times. This was a big disappointment for him. He felt sad and lost. Without the art school, he didn't know what to do. Because he didn't have money and a stable job, he struggled a lot in Vienna. For some time, he lived on the streets. He didn't have a home, So he slept in parks or shelters for homeless people. He ate whatever food he could find. This was a difficult and lonely time for him. This hardship made him angry and frustrated. During his time in Vienna, Hitler also became interested in politics. He listened to people talking about different ideas. He read newspapers and pamphlets. He started to develop his own political views. One thing he heard about a lot was nationalism. He began to feel strongly about the idea of a strong German nation. He believed that Germans were better than other people. Another important idea that influenced Hitler in Vienna was anti-Semitism. He was exposed to the idea of hating Jewish people. He started to see Jewish people as enemies. He blamed them for problems in society. This was a terrible and dangerous idea. He started to believe many of the negative things he heard about them, and this belief grew stronger over time. This is often seen as the start of his anti-Jewish beliefs. In Vienna, Hitler spent time in places where people gathered to talk about politics. He listened to speeches and learned how to talk to people. He was not a very good artist, but he found he had a talent for talking to crowds. He also started to develop an awful belief, a sense of being better than others. His time in Vienna was important for shaping his future. He became more and more nationalistic, believing in the greatness of Germany. He also began to hate Jewish people. He lived a life that was often difficult. These feelings of anger, frustration, and a sense of superiority grew stronger in him. Even though he did not become a famous artist, the things he learned and felt in Vienna stayed with him. They would play a big role in the rest of his life. The experiences in Vienna made him into the person who would later become a terrible leader. This is not to say he was excused in any way for what he did later, as many others also experience hardship without showing hate and violence. But this period in his life formed the basis of his hatred and plans. Chapter 3. The Great War. In 1914, something big happened in Europe. The First World War started. For Adolf Hitler, this was a very important moment in his life. He was living in Munich, Germany. He was not a German citizen. He was still Austrian. But he was very happy when the war began. He saw the war as an opportunity. He wanted to fight for Germany. Hitler joined the German army in August 1914. He was a soldier in a Bavarian regiment. He was excited to be part of the army. For him, the war was not just fighting. It was a great cause. He believed in Germany. He wanted Germany to be strong and powerful. Hitler was a brave soldier. He fought on the Western Front. This was a very dangerous place. There were many battles and lots of fighting. He worked as a messenger. This job was very dangerous because he had to go between the front lines. He carried important messages. It was a very scary job. He saw many people die, but he was not afraid. He was very focused on his job. During the war, Hitler was injured a few times. Once, he was hurt by a gas attack. He was sent to a hospital to recover. But even with his injuries, he was happy to serve. He got medals for his bravery. He was proud of his medals. He thought he was a good soldier. He felt like he was finally part of something important. He was not just a lonely man anymore. The war changed Hitler's ideas. He saw how hard it was for soldiers. He believed that Germany was a great country. But he also saw that the war was very difficult. He saw how many young men died. He started to think about why the war was happening. He listened to other soldiers. He listened to their complaints. He did not think the generals were always right. Hitler became more nationalistic. This means he thought his country was the most important. He began to think that other countries were not as good. He started to blame other groups of people for the problems of Germany. He started to develop strong opinions about things. In 1918, the war ended. Germany lost. For Hitler, this was a terrible shock. He could not believe that Germany had lost. He felt angry. He felt that Germany had been betrayed. He refused to accept that Germany had lost fairly. Many Germans believed a lie called the stab-in-the-back myth. This myth said that Germany did not lose the war because of the fighting. It said that traitors in Germany had hurt the army from the inside. These people were said to be the reason why the war was lost. Hitler believed this myth. He thought that some groups of people like Jews and communists had stabbed Germany in the back. He started to hate these groups. The war was over. But for Hitler, the fight was not over. He now had very strong ideas. He was angry and wanted revenge. The war experience made him feel very powerful. He was no longer just a poor artist from Austria. He was now a soldier, a man with a cause. He was now ready to start a new chapter in his life, a chapter that would change the world forever. He was very upset about the defeat. He did not like the new government. He thought the government was weak. He thought he could do a better job. He was starting to think about how he could become powerful. Chapter 4. Joining the Party. After the war, Germany was very different. It was not strong anymore. The war was lost, and many people were sad and angry. The economy, or the money of the country, was very bad. People did not have jobs, and food was expensive. There was a lot of trouble. Adolf Hitler felt very strongly about this. He was angry about the defeat in the war. He did not think that Germany was weak. He thought that some people, especially Jewish people, were to blame. This is the idea of the stab in the back myth he learned about. He believed some people had betrayed Germany. Hitler was still in the army after the war ended, but it wasn't the same. He was doing work in Munich. It was there he started to become more interested in politics. He watched some small political groups. One group was called the German Workers' Party. This party had ideas about Germany becoming strong again. They were also against Jewish people and other minorities. These ideas were very similar to Hitler's own. In 1919, Hitler went to a meeting of the German Workers' Party. He listened to the speakers. Then, he started to talk. To everyone's surprise, he was a very good speaker. He was very emotional, and he spoke with passion. People listened to him carefully. He talked about Germany's problems and how to solve them. He talked about making Germany great again. He made people feel like they could change things. The people in the party were impressed by Hitler. They asked him to join their party. He agreed, and he became member number 55. That's right, he didn't have a low number. The party was small, but Hitler had big ideas. He helped to change the party's name to the National Socialist German Workers' Party. People started to call it the Nazi Party for short. Hitler did many things in the party. He helped to make posters, he helped to organize meetings. But his most important job was speaking to the people. He spoke at meetings and rallies, or big public gatherings. His speeches were very powerful. He used simple language, and people understood him. They loved his emotional way of talking. He made them believe in his ideas. He was good at making people angry and then giving them the answer. In his speeches, Hitler talked about many things. He said that Germany was not treated fairly. He said that Germany was too weak. He said that other countries were treating Germany unfairly. He said that German people were special and should be the rulers. He blamed Jewish people for many of Germany's problems. He also talked about making Germany strong with a big army. Hitler's ideas were very popular with some people. They wanted someone to make Germany great again. They liked his ideas of a strong and powerful Germany. They also did not like the people he was blaming, like the Jewish people. His speeches made people feel like he could change their lives. Slowly, Hitler became more important in the Nazi Party. He became the leader of the party's propaganda. Propaganda means spreading ideas to make people believe them. He used propaganda in his speeches, posters, and newspapers. He became more famous. He started to have a big influence on the party's ideas. He was now making his ideas more known. People were starting to follow him. Hitler was not a soldier anymore. He was now a politician. He had found his skill, talking to people. He used this skill to get more and more power. He used it to build his political party, and he used it to get more supporters. He was moving up in the party. He was on his way to becoming a very important figure in Germany. The German Workers' Party was small no more, and it was growing more and more with Hitler leading the charge. Chapter 5. The Beer Hall Putsch. The Nazi Party was growing. Many people in Germany were angry and sad after the war. They were looking for someone to blame. Hitler's speeches were very popular. He spoke about a strong Germany. He said the Jews were the problem. More and more people joined the Nazi Party. They had a flag with a black swastika. They had brown uniforms. They marched in the streets. Hitler thought he was very powerful now. He had a plan. He wanted to take over the government. He did not want to wait. He wanted to be the leader of Germany quickly. He made a plan for a putsch. A putsch is when a group tries to take power by force. In November 1923, Hitler decided to act. The Nazi Party met in a big beer hall in Munich. They were having a meeting. Hitler came in with some soldiers. They had guns. He jumped on a table. He shouted that the revolution had started. He told everyone he was the new leader of Germany. This was the start of the beer hall putsch. Hitler and his men marched through the streets of Munich. They wanted to take over important buildings, but it was not easy. The police were waiting. They did not like Hitler. They did not want him to take power. There was a fight. Shots were fired. Some people were hurt. The police stopped the putsch. Hitler's plan failed. He tried to run away, but the police caught him. The beer hall putsch was a disaster for Hitler. Hitler was arrested. He was put in prison. He was not happy, but he had time to think. He used his time in prison to write a book. The book was called Mein Kampf, which means My Struggle. In Mein Kampf, Hitler wrote about his ideas. He wrote about Germany. He wrote about his hatred for the Jews. He wrote about his plan to make Germany strong again. He also wrote about his plan to make other countries part of Germany. The book Mein Kampf was very important for the Nazi Party. It showed people what Hitler wanted. It made some people like him even more. It also scared other people. Mein Kampf was not a good book. It was full of hate, but it became very famous. Many people read it. The beer hall putsch was a failure, but it helped Hitler in a strange way. It made him famous. It showed the world who he was. It helped him to spread his ideas. He was in prison for a short time. After prison, he was more determined than ever. He knew he had to find a different way to get to power. He would use his words. He would use his followers. He would plan his next steps carefully. He was going to build the Nazi Party back stronger than before. He was going to achieve his goal of becoming the leader of Germany. His time in prison was not wasted. He had time to think and plan. He had time to write. The beer hall putsch was a big failure, but it was also the beginning of the next part of Hitler's story. A dark chapter was about to begin. Chapter 6. Road to Power. After the failed beer hall putsch, Hitler was in prison. He spent time writing his book, Mein Kampf. This book was about his ideas and plans for Germany. When he came out of prison, the Nazi Party was weak. Many people did not believe in them anymore. Hitler had to work hard to make the party strong again. The 1920s were a difficult time for Germany. The economy was very bad. Many people lost their jobs and had no money. This was called the Great Depression. People were angry and wanted change. Hitler saw this as a chance. He knew that if he could make people believe he could make their lives better, they would support him. Hitler was a good speaker. He could make people feel excited and hopeful. He gave many speeches in towns and cities. He talked about how Germany was great and how it had been hurt by other countries. He blamed the Jews and other groups for Germany's problems. He said they were bad people who wanted to hurt Germany. This is called scapegoating, which blaming a group for all the problems. He promised people jobs and a better life. He promised to make Germany strong again. He used powerful words and simple ideas that everyone could understand. Many people started to believe him. The Nazis used propaganda. This means they used newspapers, posters, and radio to spread their ideas. They showed Hitler as a strong leader who could save Germany. They made their message very simple, so it was easy to remember. They also used symbols like the swastika to make people feel like they were part of a big movement. The Nazis organized big rallies. People would come to see Hitler speak. They would wear Nazi uniforms and march with flags. These events made the Nazi Party look very powerful and popular. The Nazis also used violence. They had groups of men in uniforms called the SA. These men would beat up people who disagreed with the Nazis. They attacked people who were Jewish or who were members of other political parties. This violence scared many people, but it also showed that the Nazis were strong. Hitler was very good at politics. He made deals with other parties. He knew how to get what he wanted. He used the bad situation in Germany to his advantage. More and more people voted for the Nazi Party. The Nazi Party became very powerful in Germany. They won more and more seats in the German parliament. They became the biggest party. Many people thought that Hitler could help Germany. They did not know that his ideas were very dangerous. They did not know that he wanted to hurt many people. During these years, Hitler's power grew step by step. He used speeches, propaganda, violence, and political tricks to gain more followers and control. He became a popular figure, someone people believed could bring Germany out of its problems. His ability to connect with the public and exploit the country's distress was key to his rising influence. However, his plans were not to make life better for everyone, but rather to establish a dictatorship and impose his own destructive vision. The road to power was long and difficult, but Hitler was patient and determined. He did everything he could to make his dreams a reality. Chapter 7. Becoming Chancellor. The years after prison were busy for Adolf Hitler. His Nazi Party, though weakened for a while, started to grow again. Germany was not doing well. The economy was bad, and many people were poor and unhappy. Hitler used this unhappiness. He was a good speaker, and he promised people jobs, food, and a strong Germany. He blamed the problems on others, the Jews, communists, and the people who signed the treaty at the end of the Great War. His speeches were full of anger and hope, and many people started to listen. The Nazis used propaganda. This is when you show information to make people believe something. They used posters, newspapers, and radio to tell people that Hitler was the only person who could save Germany. They showed pictures of Hitler as a strong leader. They organized big rallies with flags and music. These rallies made people feel excited and part of something big. As the Nazi Party became stronger, Hitler made deals with other political groups. These groups did not all like Hitler, but they thought they could use him to get what they wanted. They didn't understand how dangerous he was. The German government was weak. It was hard for them to make decisions. In January 1933, the president, Paul von Hindenburg, made a big mistake. He made Adolf Hitler the Chancellor of Germany. Chancellor is the most important job in the government. Many people, even those who didn't like Hitler, thought he wouldn't have much power because he didn't have total control of the parliament. They thought they could control him. They were wrong. Hitler was now the leader of Germany, but he wanted to have complete control. He did not want anyone to stop him. Soon after he became Chancellor, something important happened. The German parliament building, the Reichstag, caught fire. It was a big event. The Nazis said that the communists started the fire. They used this as an excuse to arrest many people they didn't like. It's unclear who started the fire, but it helped Hitler get more power. After the fire, Hitler got the parliament to pass a new law called the Enabling Act. This was a terrible law. It gave Hitler almost all the power. It allowed him to make laws without the parliament's agreement. This meant Hitler could do anything he wanted. He no longer needed to ask anyone for permission. With the Enabling Act, Hitler started to change Germany. He banned other political parties. People who spoke out against him were arrested. The Nazi Party was now the only party allowed. Hitler's power grew very quickly. He used fear to control people. He created a secret police called the Gestapo. The Gestapo would arrest people who were against the Nazis. They were very cruel and would put people in prison without a trial. Hitler made himself the Führer, the supreme leader of Germany. He was in total control of the country. He promised a better future, but his ideas were dangerous and hateful. He started to plan for a powerful Germany, and his power had become absolute. The path towards destruction was beginning. Chapter 8. Nazi Germany. After becoming Chancellor, Adolf Hitler quickly changed Germany. He wanted to make it a powerful nation again. He did this by creating a totalitarian state. This means he had total control. There was only one political party, the Nazi Party. All other parties were not allowed. Hitler used fear to keep control. He set up a secret police, the Gestapo. They arrested people who spoke against the Nazis. Many people were sent to prison or to concentration camps. People were afraid to say what they really thought. One of the worst things Hitler did was the persecution of Jews. He blamed them for Germany's problems. This was called anti-Semitism. He made new laws that took away Jewish people's rights. Jewish people lost their jobs, their businesses, and even their homes. They had to wear a yellow star to show they were Jewish. They were often attacked in the streets. It was a very difficult and dangerous time to be Jewish in Germany. Other groups of people also suffered. Roma people, disabled people, and homosexuals were also targeted. They were seen as different and not German. This is a dark part of history. Hitler also changed the economy. He started big projects, like building roads and factories. These projects helped create jobs. This made people happy because many had been without work before. He also started rearmament. This means he built up the army again. Germany was not allowed to do this after the First World War, but Hitler ignored this. He wanted to make Germany strong for war. Propaganda played a big role in Nazi Germany. The Nazis used posters, radio, and newspapers to spread their ideas. They controlled everything that people saw and heard. They told people that Hitler was a great leader. They made him look very powerful. They told people that Germany was superior to other countries. This propaganda was very effective. It made many people support Hitler. Children were taught Nazi ideas in school. They learned that Hitler was their hero. They also learned that Jews were their enemy. This made a whole generation grow up with these bad ideas. Hitler used censorship to keep people from knowing the truth. He did not allow any negative things to be written about him or the Nazi Party. He made sure people only heard what he wanted them to hear. He controlled the news. He burned books that did not agree with Nazi ideas. As Hitler got stronger, he wanted to expand Germany's land. He believed the Germans needed more living space. He wanted to take land from other countries. He broke treaties and invaded other countries. This made tensions with other countries. He was preparing Germany for a big war. Life in Nazi Germany was very controlled. People had to obey the rules. There was little freedom. But many people also felt proud of Germany's growing power. They followed Hitler because they believed he was making Germany great again. They did not see the terrible things he was doing to many groups of people. However, his actions were leading the country towards a terrible conflict. The seeds of war were being sown. Chapter 9. The War. The start of the war was exactly what Hitler wanted. In September 1939, German soldiers marched into Poland. It was fast. The Polish army was not strong enough, and they were defeated quickly. This was the start of World War II. People in other countries were scared, but Hitler was very happy. He thought Germany was strong and could win against everyone. After Poland, there were more quick victories. Hitler's army moved into countries in Western Europe. France, Belgium, and the Netherlands fell to Germany in a short time. The German army seemed unstoppable. They used new ways of fighting, like fast tanks and planes working together. This surprised the other countries. For a time, it looked like Germany would win the war very easily. But the war was not easy for everyone. People in the countries Germany took over had a very hard time. They did not have enough food, and they had to live under the German rules. Some people started to fight back. They formed secret groups to resist the Germans. Then, in 1941, Hitler made a big mistake. He decided to attack the Soviet Union. This was a very big country, with a lot of soldiers. The German army went very deep into the Soviet Union. At first, they had some success. But then the weather got very cold. The German soldiers were not ready for the snow and ice. Many of them got sick and died. The Soviet soldiers fought back hard. This was a turning point in the war. During the war, something terrible was happening. Hitler and his party believed that some people were not good enough. They thought Jewish people were bad and should be killed. They also hated other groups, like Roma people and people with disabilities. This terrible time is called the Holocaust. Millions of innocent people were taken away and killed in camps. This was a terrible crime. The war was not only on the ground. There was also fighting in the air and on the sea. Many people were killed. Cities were destroyed. The war made life very difficult for people all over the world. After the Soviet Union, other countries started to fight against Germany. The United States, Britain, and other nations joined forces. They became stronger and stronger. The German army started to lose many battles. They had less and less new weapons and soldiers. By 1944 and 1945, it was clear that Germany was losing the war. The Allied forces were coming closer from the west and the east. German cities were bombed, and their factories were destroyed. Hitler refused to give up. He kept telling his people that they would win, even when it was obvious they would not. More and more people began to see that Hitler's ideas were wrong. They started to resist his rule. But Hitler did not stop. He continued to fight, even when his army was small and his country was in ruins. The war was going to end, but not in the way Hitler wanted. His dream of a powerful Germany was quickly becoming a nightmare. The end was near, and it would be a tragic one. The early victories became distant memories, as the reality of defeat and the horrific consequences of Hitler's policies became unavoidable. The once unstoppable army was now on the brink of collapse, facing resistance and the consequences of the atrocities committed. Chapter 10. The End. The war was now a terrible dark cloud hanging over Germany. The once proud army was losing, and the enemy was coming closer. The cities were in ruins, and the people were very scared. For Adolf Hitler, the world he had built was falling apart. He was no longer the powerful leader with the future in his hands. He had moved to a secret bunker under the city of Berlin. This bunker was deep underground, a place where he hoped to be safe. But the safety was not real. It was just a shelter from the bombs. The air was heavy with worry, and the sounds of fighting were getting closer every day. It was a very different world from the grand parades he had enjoyed before. Hitler, the Goebbels family, Martin Bormann, Eva Braun, and some other staff remained in the bunker. Hitler married Eva Braun on the 29th of April 1945, 40 hours after Hitler and Eva Braun got married in Berlin, Germany. Both of them committed suicide. Eva Braun by poisoning with cyanide. Hitler also gave some to his German shepherd. Then, Hitler committed suicide by shooting himself in the head with his gun. Before this, Hitler ordered that their bodies be burned after they were dead. This prevented him from being captured alive by soldiers of the Soviet army, who were closing in on him. Despite this, there are theories that Hitler did not die in 1945, but that he instead escaped to Argentina. These theories are very unpopular, with most historians dismissing them. Outside the bunker, the war continued for a few more days. But the death of Hitler was the signal for many German soldiers to give up the fight. Soon after, Berlin fell to the Soviet army, and the war in Europe ended. It was a great relief for many people around the world. The destruction caused by the war was huge. Cities had been destroyed, and millions of people had died. The Holocaust, the terrible event that happened during the war, showed the darkest part of human nature. People around the world were shocked by the horrible things that had been done in Germany. The world after the war had to deal with the aftermath, the damage, the pain, and the loss of so many lives. The world had to rebuild, to remember the lessons of the war. The ideas that Hitler had promoted had led to terrible tragedy. His legacy was one of destruction, suffering, and a lesson about the dangers of hate. Even many years later, the world remembers the horror he caused, so that nothing like it can happen again. It is important to understand how his ideas led to so much pain, so we can learn from the past and prevent such a tragedy from ever happening again.